Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes for those keeping count. This is episode 316, and my
Mhm.
next guest I met 10 years ago at the 2014 Lexicon Writers Conference in Denton, Texas, and I've always wanted to get her on this show because we're going to talk about the state of publishing. So I want to welcome
Yeah.
Amanda Thrasher, who is the founder, CEO of Progressive Rising Phoenix Press. And I'm honored that you're here because as when we first met, I only had the one book. I had only produced the one book, and now 10 years later, I'm up to almost 50 books, and I think you're up to hundreds.
Yeah.
But I've always admired that because you do this as a full time gig.
Yeah.
My publishing is more of a part time thing that we took on just because clients wanted that aspect for their marketing. But way too many things have changed in this industry, and
Yeah.
this is why you're here because we're going to talk about that.
Well, it's thank you for having me, first and foremost. It's really a pleasure to be here. And yeah, the industry has changed dramatically over the last several years, and it's continually changing. And I don't even hardly recognize it anymore. Literally, it's changed. That I always say when I bring on new people that want to come on board with us, I feel like our company as a whole is getting left behind technology wise. It was hard before, it's harder now.
Right.
And as long as authors are aware of that they're going to be coming on board, it's going to be a journey, but it's going to be a hard journey and it's not going to be a profitable journey, then I feel like we have a clear understanding of the state of where the publishing industry is today. It's a saturated mess, is what it is.
Yeah,
I feel
I had a client that we produced their book, and the second go around, they said, "Okay, Rob, we want to go with your publishing service again." I said, "Okay, great, let's go." And sent an invoice. Didn't hear from them for a couple weeks. I'm like, "Okay, well, you're not interested? Oh no, we're going to try it ourselves now. We're going to try to save some money." And then I guess after many attempts to try to get their book on Amazon, they came back and said, "Okay, you help us because everything that we're doing is wrong." Yeah, it's not easy, folks. I mean, it took
it's
me a long
not
time to, and plus, Amazon is always changing the rules. And
always.
when it was the first book, I loaded up the manuscript, and Amazon took care of it. Everything. I mean, if the spine was a little adjusted, needed adjusted, they take care of it. Now KDP doesn't do any of that. You have to make sure that it's proper before you even upload it.
And part of the reason for that is because then they're selling a service to handle that for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we've realized that instead of just loading these pieces and correcting them to make them the best product to put out in the market, we can charge authors to do that. They can try it themselves, but they already know it's not going to work efficiently or well, and they're not going to produce a great product. So then they can turn around and step in and go, okay, we can handle that for a fee.
Mhm.
And then all of their fees just continually go up. So I always say that in today's market for a company our size, a small to mid-sized publisher, you are now at the point where you're talking to authors, and the difference is going to be, are you wanting to do it completely by yourself and take full responsibility for that and try to produce the best product you can and get it out in the market and give it the best shot possible? Or do you want to hire a company or a service, a publisher, a company to handle it for you that is going to actually produce the product correctly? Because there's so much more than just putting up the files and uploading the files. I mean, the formatting, the design, the editing, that is just the basics of
Mm.
what needs to be done. But then when you're looking at, making sure your metadata is correct, your theme codes, your bisect codes, your categories, making sure it all matches up in the Bowker system as well as in your printing publishing system, the one you're on, making sure it all matches. Those are key things. And then On top of that, then you're having to register work with the Library of Congress. These are things that I think a lot of authors take for granted. They don't realize there's so much on the back end that's being done. If anything is affected in the flow, like from the top down, whether it's a surcharge on fuel or we've had paper mills close, so paper goes up, all of that's passed down from your actual printer, your distributor, that's passed on down to the publisher, which is passed on down to the author. Well, what does that do? That changes your cover prices. So then you have to go back in there, you have to readjust all your cover prices globally. And so I just think there's a lot that goes on that people aren't aware of because they're so used to people pushing this self-publishing. You can just do it, load your files, do it yourself, save some money. And it's just not that simple. So it's almost like if you're hiring someone like us, you know it's going to be you, me, services like us. It's going to be done properly from the top to the bottom, the back end, everything you don't see, and you're going to have a great product in addition to that.
Yeah, and
So I
I think
think
one of
it's almost that's where we are now. It's you're hiring a service to do it for you where you don't have any burdens, you don't have any worries. You're then, with other authors with the same label so you can build a presence, you can get your work out there consistently versus just trying to scramble yourself to do it. Because it used to be, well, we'll publish your book and we're going to, make sure it's going to get out there. You're going to get some visibility. You're going to get some sales. And I don't even talk about those things anymore because they're just so hard to get.
yeah,
Even with the best marketing plans, you can spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. You can do every single thing right. You can have a great story and people still may go, yeah, I'm not really sure about that. I'm not going to buy it.
yeah,
So
and it's hard
it's
to give
just not like it
guarantees.
used
I
to
mean,
be.
people will say, "Well, Rob, I want to sell 1,000 books or 2,000 books or 10,000 books," and I'm like, I can't guarantee that. You know,
No.
it just you're going to put your book out there, and however you market is going to be how that book sells. If you
Yeah.
want us to market it, great, but you're going to spend more money. You market it, you know,
Yeah.
and
And even with the best marketing plans, like I said earlier, they can do everything right, every single thing, and it still isn't, beneficial. The book still doesn't move.
right.
That's the market we're in because there's so many books out there on the market, millions of new books every single year. And in addition to that, then you have your big players, your great big, your Penguins, your Random House, your Penguin Random House, your
Mhm.
Schuster's, all of those, and they're spending millions of dollars on books that they know are going to be successful due to TV audiences or political people or famous people, that it just pushes everything else out of the way. And on Amazon, where years ago it seemed that if you had everything set up correctly, like with the algorithms, your keywords, your categories, all of those things, and then you bought an Amazon ad, that your book would actually have the visibility that you're intending it to get for your target market. But now anymore, so many big companies are spending thousands of dollars on ads that even if you're doing those things, if you're spending $100 and someone's spending 1,000, your book's going to be bumped.
Mhm.
It's going to be bumped. It's not going to have the visibility that those other books are. So it's almost like you're swimming upstream continually. And
Yeah.
I think new authors or people wanting to publish today need to understand that this isn't the market it used to be 10 years ago where you could sell a couple hundred units one day, 200 next week. It's just not that way anymore. They're trickling. The sales are trickling.
Right.
And
And
it's a shame, and I'm not speaking about the big authors or the people that have automatic best-selling, books because they have a TV audience and then they produce a book and then, of course, they're getting those millions of sales. I'm talking about normal, regular, everyday people.
right. And then Amazon forces you to go out and get reviews, which, I think everybody should have reviews. However, if you're going to sell the book, sell it on your own website, sell it to your own people,
Yeah,
track your own
yeah,
sales, get your own
yeah,
reviews. If you rely on Amazon, you have no idea who's buying the book. You don't know where it's going. You don't know if they're going to, remarket to them or not.
yeah,
And yeah, the reviews might be on there, but are they actually your reviews, someone else's reviews going
mm,
that actually bought the book? You know,
yeah.
I
Well, I agree with that. Like years ago, the mindset was with a small or mid-sized publishing company was to go broader audience. So you wanted to have like a large distribution, a distributor that was actually hand selling your book in regards to different bookstore channels. You know, you had your sales field people that's what they would do, and they were selling these books to these different buyers. And today that's so hard to accomplish, to fall into those categories, that we now have gone, I say we go backwards. We've gone backwards. We've gone back to the direct selling, the small, doing it smaller instead of broader. So if you're doing it on a smaller scale and you're selling to your family, friends, your acquaintances, people within your community, then the word of your book, the spark, the buzz is traveling out from inward outward versus trying to get a great big mass scattered broad arena to view your book.
Mhm.
And it didn't used to be that way. We used to want, you know, those field sales. We wanted those distributors to sell on our behalf. And because that is such an impossible market to get into, that direct sales, like you said, selling off your website, selling local in your community, is far more effective than trying to do it broader and bigger.
Yeah.
Far more effective. And you never know who that one right reader's going to be, the one right connection. You don't know who that is, but it only takes one right connection to start a spark, which starts a fire, which starts the buzz for your book.
Yeah, but there's also scams. You know, in the last 10 years,
Oh,
I've
terrible.
noticed so many people coming out of the woodwork and they'll say, "Hey, we'll turn your book into a movie script. All you
Yeah.
have to do is give us more money." And,
Yeah.
you know, it's tempting because you think, "Wow, someone took interest in my book and now it could be a movie star. I mean, a movie or TV show, and but all I have to do is give them 5,000, 10,000." And I'm like, you know, the chances of your book becoming a movie are very slim. And
Slim to
and
none.
and, you know,
I
I
have a
don't wanna
USA Today
discourage
best.
people, but yeah, it's just
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I have a USA Today bestselling author on our label, and she is phenomenal. She's got millions of books in circulation. She's not just obviously with us. She's with HarperCollins. She was with Schuster for a while. She's with all of these different presses, Harlequin, including us. So we have like 5 or 6 of her titles. She has hundreds with other publishers, and she has about 9 or 10, I believe, novels that have been opted for movie rights.
mhm,
And what that means is technically they're tied up. No one can do anything with those, you know, rights until she's out of her contract for these movie rights. And none of them have been brought to the screen. None of them. So it's almost like they just tie them up,
mhm,
and there's nothing you can do with them.
yeah,
You're I mean, I hate to say it, but you're kind of screwed in the sense that you have this. Then if somebody else legit comes in and says, "I really want to, you know, purchase the rights to this to turn to movie," I want you can't,
yeah,
because they're already tied up, and they tie them up for years and years and years.
yeah,
So I agree with you on that. It's
yeah,
just
uh,
there are a lot of scams out there. I saw one that I keep seeing repeatedly on Facebook, and I send it to all my authors because I'm like, can someone tell me how this is legit or even legal? Where they're teaching people how to purchase one-time EPUBs and then sell them over and over and over again.
mm,
I don't even understand how that's legal,
yeah,
because every time they're selling that book, the author isn't getting a royalty.
right. Now
So
I
how does
do
that happen?
I
How
do
does
know
that?
that in a situation where I had a couple years ago, a professional reached out, he says, "Rob, I take a look at this book." And I said, "Okay, it looks like someone else wrote it." He says, "They did." He says, "What this guy does is he goes around to all the professionals and he takes the same book and you just slap your name on it." And I said, "Well, you can't put that on Amazon. You can't put that, you know, he goes, "No, we just buy them the way they are and say to people that we actually have a book." So one person writes it, licenses it to all these other professionals. It's the same book. I said, "Yeah, but what if you you're the, you know, what if you happen to be a customer of both these, you're going to get the same book." And
Yeah.
he goes, "Yeah, it's a small chance that we have to take." I'm like, "Well, that's dumb." So that could be the
Yeah.
same thing, it's kind of a derivative of that scam, but yeah, I don't wanna do stuff like that. I don't wanna be known
No.
as someone who does unethical stuff like that.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's why anymore when we bring on anybody, we have them sign off on their contract that they completely understand that there's absolutely no way on any level that we can guarantee sales. As much as we would love your book to sell, we will not guarantee that you will even get your money back.
Yeah,
It is too impossible. And I don't want a single author putting themselves in a financial bind, or having expectations that are unrealistic and coming on board and thinking, well, at least I'll get all my money back. You probably won't. If you do, fantastic. We want you to, but
yeah,
you probably won't. So if you can't make that investment knowing I'm going to put all this money into this now hobby, unfortunately, hobby that I really want to do. And if I sell, great. And if I don't, I'm okay with that. Then I always tell people, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's too hard right now.
yeah.
Even if you're with a large publisher, they have expectations on you. You have to sell X amount of units within the first year, or they're not putting any money into you,
Mhm.
and they'll just move on to the next one, next author, next author.
Yeah,
So you might get on with a big publisher, but they're not supporting you. You have to show that your book is selling itself. You're selling the book before they'll turn around and put any sponsor money or marketing money behind you. So
yeah.
it's not getting with a great big publisher is like, okay, that's it. I've made it. It's just not that way anymore.
And
It's
unless you're a
simply not.
celebrity that has millions of followers, there's no advancement
Oh, yeah.
anymore, you know?
No,
They're just not
no.
gonna hand it out to you.
They're not. They're not. They're making everybody work for it, which I get you have to work for it, but when they dominate so much of it, it just makes it really hard for everybody else. So it's almost like you have to have a love for the work that you're writing and that you're producing and that you want to put it out there because you want to share what you've written, whether it, brings joy, happiness, if it makes somebody think, if it's a how-to book, you're doing it because you want to share it with the world and you're not really concerned on what, royalties you're going to get back or units on sales. If it happens, great, but you're aware that right now your number one concern is putting this book out for your own personal reasons.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
that's a shame, but that's honestly how it is anymore. And like I've said, I've had multiple authors, myself included, because I am an author as well, spend thousands and thousands of dollars doing everything right.
mhm,
And it still doesn't mean you can get a lot of visibility on your ads, a lot of thousands and thousands of people, but when it comes to actually make that commitment to purchase, you can't force them to do it. So then it comes, well, did the ad work? Well, if you're looking for visibility, the ad worked because you got, 20,000 new visits that you would never have gotten without the ad. But on the click through, when they actually purchased it, it didn't pay for itself at all. So it's six of one, half a dozen of the other. Do I want to get that visibility out there, spend the money, get the visibility out there? To me, professionally, I would say yes, do that, but understand that that doesn't mean that you're going to get the purchases
yeah.
that follows that. So it's
I
not that the ad didn't work, it's that you can't force a consumer to purchase it. But then you have all those additional people see your work that wouldn't have seen it before.
my first 2 books made money, and got me fame and fortune and travel, and I was like, "Oh, this is great. This is awesome. I love what I'm
Yeah,
doing." 3rd book, I lost money. It didn't make money. It didn't break even until, like, 5 years later.
yeah,
By that time, I
yeah.
had written a whole bunch of other ones to make up for it, but you're gonna lose money. I don't care if
Yeah,
it's your 1st book, your 10th book, somewhere along the line, but, one of your books is gonna lose you money, and it's gonna be discouraging, and it could be
yeah,
your 1st book. It could be, like I said, your 10th book, but, you know, for me, as a writer, as someone who enjoys writing, I just continue to write, and
yeah,
I can't let that book say, you know, drive me down into the muck saying, "Oh, you lost money. Stop
you
writing. It's not
can't.
good." Just keep writing. It just
Because writers, and I think that's the difference between writers and people that do a one-off.
Mhm,
A writer's always gonna write.
mhm,
They're always gonna put their work out there, they're always gonna write. Then you have some people that just write a book, one book, and they're done.
Mhm.
That's why I always call those people a one-off. And maybe they'll make it, maybe they won't. But the writers, the true writers, they're going to write no matter what. And I do think that once they start to see some movement, some traction in that work, it's not unusual for the people that are purchasing their book to go back. And it can be years, going back years and purchasing from their backlist.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot more backlist sales than we do new releases. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're with a small to mid sized company. Everybody's not seeing your work. So it's new for somebody every single day.
Mhm.
So there's always that potential that someone's gonna be the right someone and know someone in the right place and say, "You've gotta read this book.
Mhm.
You know, put this book on TV, put this book, share this with your producers. This is a great book." You don't know who that one person's gonna be. And often when that happens, they go back and go, "Well, what else did this person write? I really like their style. I like their voice. I like what they're doing." And they can go back years on the backlist. So I'm big supporter of that backlist. I love a backlist.
Yeah,
It's really
and
strong.
my whole Rob Versus series is just my sarcastic take on scammers and lousy customer service, and basically they're just conversations that I've had with these people that I end up sharing in the book. And a movie producer had read one of my books. We met on LinkedIn, and I ended up writing his book,
Ah,
which was pretty cool, you
yeah,
know. And yes, I did get teased on, "Hey, you know what, Rob? I think your book would make a great TV show." You know, but back in my mind, I'm like, "Yeah, what? What are the chances?" We developed a script, and then the writer's strike, and then a bunch of other stuff happened, and it's like, okay, it's been 2 years, nothing's happening. Move on. We're
yeah.
gonna, as writers, we're gonna have these highs, we're gonna have these lows. And
I agree.
for me, it's every book that I write or produce is my therapy, and it
Yeah,
becomes very therapeutic. Although sometimes I just want to punch the person that I'm helping because they're not listening.
that can be hard.
You know,
I always tell people that are coming on board, if you have to choose between purchasing groceries, paying your mortgage, paying your car payment, and writing this book, do not put this book out.
right?
Do not do. It's not worth putting yourself in any kind of financial bind or worrying. Don't do it because two things will happen. Number one, you're going to hurt yourself financially and it's not worth it. And number two, not trying to kill the dream here. Trust me, I love writing. I've been writing for years. I'm not trying to kill the dream. I'm just being realistic. And two, what I think is most important, even in addition to putting yourself in a bind, is you'll hate it.
Mhm.
You will hate everything that that book represents because it's put you in trouble somewhere else in your life financially. And that book will become a thorn in your side. And when you're doing something like putting out a book, a work that you've worked so hard on, you want to enjoy that journey.
Mhm.
You want to be able to, if we sell, great. If we don't, I'm just going to keep forging ahead. But you're not wanting to be in a position where you think, that book has ruined me financially. I'm in a bind. I hate that book. I don't even want to look at that book. I don't want to promote that book
Mhm.
because then you're just, adding insult to injury. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, let's talk about AI.
Oh, yeah.
I know that it's a sore subject for us, for struggling writers. It could be a lifesaver or not. One of my Facebook friends produced 6 books using AI,
Wow.
and
Were they good? What were they
they
like?
were they they were horrible, and they were all on some woo woo crap that I'm thinking the average person's never going to take interest in. But it was like pump and dump. You're taking all
Yeah.
this stuff from AI. Maybe you're assembling it into something that flows nice, but then you're just dumping it right on Amazon. And then you're like, well, how come nobody's buying it? One, you're not marketing it. Two, it's AI. It's not you. You know,
Yeah.
I think when people start to read it, they're like, well, where's the personality of this guy? Where's the tone? Where?
That's what I was gonna say.
So,
I agree
yes,
with
you
you.
can.
What I've noticed is there's no voice in there, right? It's just very flat. It's just like spitting out just to me it's like dead air. It's just spitting out
Mhm.
stuff. But there's no emotion in it, which is what draws people to a book or to an author. You
Yeah,
want to connect with that person. And in the AI world, it doesn't seem like you can get that. You
yeah,
can obtain that.
yeah. It's, granted, maybe in a few years, the technology will be there where it'll match your personality to a T. But then
Yeah.
what are we humans gonna do? You know?
That's scary. That's a scary thought though, right?
You know, the the graphics that the AI is spitting out is horrible still too. I mean, fingers look,
Oh,
uh, I'm I just don't like it. But,
yeah.
here's the thing, if you're struggling with English, if your grammar's not that good, you can start asking it questions. You can say, "Well, write this article so I can study how to write better." That I would encourage you to do. Or you start writing and say, "Analyze my writing so that I can learn better." Okay,
Yeah.
great. But the best thing you can do is just write every day.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I think people, honestly, I don't write like most people because, who uses pens and pencils anymore? We all use these keyboards. So maybe it's not writing. Maybe it's typing every day, but, be creative.
Yeah,
You
without question.
you know,
No, I agree with that. I know as an author, they do say write every day, and I agree with that. I am not good at that
mhm,
because I think because I'm running PRPP as well, so you have a very business mindset and you're focused on that, and then to get into the creativity mindset where you want to create and put out fresh new work, it takes me a minute.
yeah,
I gotta get out of work mode
yeah,
and then get into, like, for example, I write this little fairy series for elementary kids. I write other stuff too, but this is a little series that I do and I really like. But I literally have to take a day and almost just like clear my head before I can sit down to write and take my mind into this little fantasy world that I've created. Otherwise, my work becomes too analytical, too, and
I think that
I
I think
can't.
with the Rob Versus books, it helped me because basically I'm taking what I've experienced in that day's conversation and I put it to paper. And that way, when
Yeah,
I'm doing that, I'm thinking, okay, this is the conversation, and I might add a little note to it, but it helps prepare me then to write other stuff that's a little bit, more technical or more personable or more entertaining.
yeah.
And so it allows me to shift back and forth. But yeah, for you, it's you have this massive company, and so maybe writing is
I've
not
had people tell
fun.
me one time, a really neat business owner, he owns a very successful company, and he told me one time, he goes, "You are gonna have to make a decision whether you want to run your company or write. Eventually, it's gonna come down to which one do you wanna do?"
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I haven't had to do that yet. I have someone that works for me that is amazing, and he takes on a lot of the responsibilities of the business, the reporting, and you know, um, contacting contractors, the daily stuff that has to be done, which is nice. But I haven't had to separate the two completely because I don't know how I would do that. When you build a company from the ground up, from nothing, it's hard to turn around and walk away from that.
Right.
You I mean, I've had this company now since 2012 and worked, 60, 70 hours a week for years and didn't take a dime out of it, and anything it made put back in and nurtures it. And we got through COVID, and COVID, all every publisher took a hit during COVID. It was rough. We got through that, and then I did a buyout and I bought my partner out. So then for me just to step away completely, I'm not there yet. I'm just not there.
Yeah, and I've been the owner of my companies for many, many years. In fact, Anspach Media is 23 years old now, and before that, I had a carpet cleaning company for 19 years, and they overlapped a couple years. But
Yeah,
I have to
yeah,
be in control. I have to be the guy who calls the shots. To me, working for someone else, I couldn't do it. I think I get fired
no.
after the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. But this AI stuff, it's scary to me because it is gonna flood the market even more,
Yeah, well,
and
we're
that's problematic.
I was reading a statistic, and it said that uh, I don't know, the amount of content that it's spitting out now in a day took us 137 years to get to that point.
Wow.
So, yes, we every year we're compounding all that content, but in the last year of using AI, it's spit out more content than ever before, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so how does someone, stand out in this world? And
Yeah,
will their book do it? And most of the
yeah.
time, the answer is no. You know,
The majority of
you,
them will
you,
not.
for me, I write a lot of business books, so these are books that entrepreneurs can give out to promote their business and to promote their skill. Their and so maybe they have a better chance because they're giving it to their clients. They're giving it to people that they want to bring on as potential vendors or partners. But people
No, I agree.
writing nonfiction, that field is even bigger. I mean, so we have to do more to I think help our authors succeed, and it's hard because social media is not the way it was 10 years ago.
No,
I
no, it's so
my
hard.
my first book I went on, I put it on Facebook, and within a year we sold thousands and thousands of copies, and
Yeah,
I thought this is great. And I can't get
yeah,
that
it's
kind of response
crazy.
from the other books I've put on.
Yeah, it's a completely different world. And there are going to be writers out there. So and I know you agree with me. There are going to be writers out there that will break through.
Mhm,
They will. They will break through and they will be successful. So we're not saying that you shouldn't get into this because you're never going to, be successful. We're saying that the odds are probably against you. And if you're aware of that, that's okay. But there will be a handful that do have those breakout titles.
mhm.
It's just not the majority of the writers that are out there that will have that kind of success. So it's not like we're trying to say you shouldn't do this. We're trying to say be aware of what you're getting into before you get into it.
Yeah,
Because there will be those a few of them that will trickle through and they'll do amazing and the book will break away and they'll be picked up by a big publisher after that and they'll get great advances and everything will be great. But the number of those people that happens to versus the number of writers out there, they just don't even equate.
yeah,
They don't match up.
and it's just like everything else in the world. If you want your product to stand out, you have to give it, I think, more of yourself. You have to promote it. You have to
Continue.
do great stuff. You have to be willing to go out there and do press releases and get PR and get on the news and make videos and there's a lot of people that are so uncomfortable. They just want to write. They're
Yeah.
like, well, I don't care what my book does then. I don't want to be out there. I don't want my face out there. I'm like, okay, but
That's the majority of the authors, and that's why I, go back to if you want to be successful and you don't have deep pockets to market, if you're not going to market yourself, then it's not the road for you if you're trying to get your money back. If you are not worried about getting your money back, then sure, just write. Just keep putting book after book after book out there, and maybe one day someone will find your book and share it and it'll take off. But if you have a good product, if you have some dollars, you don't like to market, then you definitely need to hire a service. And there's so many available. But hire the service, let them do the work, but you still have to work with the person marketing your book. The best person to sell your book is you.
yeah,
You market your book the best, And if we could get authors to be invested in themselves as well as the work they produce, it would be I think a different field
Yeah.
that we're looking at for success. Because most of the authors that I have, and they're all amazing writers. We actually publish really strong writers. We're very selective who we bring on. A lot of them are not good marketers. They don't market. Our best books, our best selling books, the person that has those titles is continually marketing herself without even realizing she's marketing herself. She has a practice. She's constantly on tour. She's going to different, border patrol, police departments, fire departments. She's giving speeches. She's taking care of them, and without even realizing it, her work is an extension of what she's already doing. So she's like her own marketing wheel.
Mhm.
Whereas we have other authors that write really, really well, but they don't hire services. They don't pick up the phone, because anymore you got to pick up the phone. You got
Mhm.
to go back old school. You got to make connections. And they're just not willing to do that. So that's when the work sits and gets stagnant. It doesn't matter how good the book is. If you're not doing anything to promote the book, it's going to sit there and get stagnant.
The book poster in back of you, the Greenlee Project. I think that was a book you brought to the Lexicon event 10 years ago, and you still have it on your wall.
Yeah. I love my backlist. I do. Because when you're a small to mid-sized company, even if you were to reach, 100,000 people, that's nothing like the millions of people that you still potentially could reach.
Mhm.
So to millions of other people, they still haven't read the book. It's still a good book,
Yeah.
right? It still serves a purpose. But I don't know about you, but as a writer, I never go back and reread my work. Once it's out there, I never reread it
I
because I'll change it.
Right. I very rarely do. Although on occasion I'll have someone call up and say, there's an error on page such and such, and I'm like, whatever. And I'll go back and maybe I'll fix it, maybe I don't. But with the first book, Share, which was all about social media, I'd say 80% of the content is in there is still relevant today. And some things have changed, of course, in the social media world. There's some platforms that no longer exist that I mentioned in the book. And people say, "Why don't you go back and fix it?" Well, you're still going to buy the book. Why should I go fix it? Get the gist of it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I have a book called "Optimize This," and my co-author and I, we've been debating whether or not we should make a 10-year revision, because a lot of things have changed in the SEO world, and I thought, nah.
Yeah.
I've I'd rather work on more Rob versus books. I'd rather do other books for other people,
Yeah.
and yes, I've written sequels for others. In fact, I just did the sixth book in a series for one of my clients. But those books are all based on his podcast.
Yeah.
So basically, if you've listened to his podcast, you've read everything in the
You're
book.
gonna purchase the book. Yeah.
But the reason why he puts them all in a book is so that he can hand them out to his elderly clients who never listen to a podcast. And for him, it's good because it's better than a business card. These people are
Yeah.
going to retain these books. They're going to have them in their library. They're going to read them, maybe, and they're going to trust him because he's put out a book. Um,
Yeah. It's a good
but
calling card.
yeah, it just do I want to do those types of books all the time? No. I mean, yeah, they're easy to
Yeah.
produce. But I think if you got the first one, two, three, you're good. I don't know if you need
Yeah.
six of them.
6 of them. Yeah. No, I agree. And especially, I personally feel like we're in just uncharted territory in regards to the stuff that's being put out there. I don't write YA anymore because you say one wrong thing or you don't say it right, and they just all over you.
Yeah.
And I hate that it's like that, but it's just the reality of how it is right now in these turbulent times.
Mm.
So I just stick with right now, I'm just sticking with my little mischief series. I think there's 5 in this series. I'm working on the 6 because it's timeless. I purposely wrote it that way. It's completely timeless. It never goes out of date.
Mhm.
And so I focus on it. It's sweet, it's fantasy, it's nice and kind and good. All of the things that I would want kids to read without having to worry about, did I say the right thing? Did I say the wrong thing? Is this, politically correct? I just don't want to have to worry about that. I don't agree with what a lot of politically correct is these days. So I don't want to get involved in any of that. And so I think with as many books that are being put on the market today that are falling into those categories of trying to be politically correct, they're to me it's selling books with an agenda,
Yeah.
and I don't want any part of that. I just
Oh,
don't, because I think that the tide will turn. I think we will get back to normal, just good books
yeah.
without having to push your agenda down someone else's
Well, I
throats,
I I think this whole
especially
list
with
of
kids.
I think this whole list of, banned books is dumb. Um,
Yes.
and like I told you off air, my Rob versus the Entitled book was taken off of Amazon for 6 months because someone was triggered. Well, the whole book is about triggered people. I mean, I think if you're gonna complain about books, it's really dumb because everybody has their own perspective, their own opinion.
Yeah.
If you read the book, great. If you wanna leave a review, great, but don't ask somebody to ban the book because you didn't like it.
Yeah.
It's just
That's ridiculous.
it's just dumb. And
It is.
but, Amazon is taking lots of people's books down, I just think it's terrible. So that's why at the very beginning of this episode, I said it's very important to have your own website, to sell your own books, to sell them to whom you want, where you want, and how much you wanna sell them for, because that
I
way
totally
you can
agree.
control the process better.
I totally, totally agree. I mean, so I know we might have sounded a little bit negative while we were talking today, but some of the things that we can say that are really, really positive, if if you can afford to put your book out there and not do it properly, professional design, professional formatting, professional editing, and not worry if you're going to get that money back, then yeah, pursue your dream. You want to be a writer, you want to share your work with the world? Absolutely. Just don't do it if you're going to put yourself in a bind. There are things that you can do that gives your book the best possible chance, and that's to get visible, the visibility, to make sure that you are using targeted ads, to make sure that your metadata is set up correctly, to make sure that it all matches across all the platforms. It's amazing how many books are out there and the metadata doesn't match.
Right,
So it's set up one way on the print side, it's set up another way in Bowker, it's set up another way when they distribute it to the channel. It's like, wait a minute, it should all be consistent. It should all match. Um, but I think there's still ways to market your books and get them out there and be successful, but the return might not be there.
yeah.
So you might get some success, you might get some sales, but if you're envisioning being a number one, New York Times bestseller, it's likely not going to happen.
Yeah, and make sure that, that you create an author page on
Yeah,
Amazon.
author page is important.
And also, a knowledge panel on Google. Google will list your picture, it'll list your books, it'll list all kinds of stuff. Although the last 6 months I've been battling Google to get the right information because they'll have the listing of the book, no picture. Or I just looked on one book and it had the back cover, but not the front cover. I'm like,
Yeah,
they had one job. But
yeah. But I think, and just going back to just talking, everybody that you meet, whether you're in a coffee shop, whether you're shopping, whether you're standing in line at a bus stop, I don't know, whatever you're doing, talk about your book, talk about your work. Don't be afraid to talk about your work. That helps get the word out there. And don't be afraid to, I'm not a big proponent of giving my books away in the sense of, free reads, how people do. I'm
yeah,
not big on that. I feel like I have value. I feel like my work has value. I've spent thousands of dollars producing this work. I don't want to constantly just put it on a 0 0. You can read it for free, because then I think you're teaching your readers to not pay for your work.
well,
Because then when you start trying to sell it, then they're like, well, wait a minute, you've been giving it away for free. But there is a time to give away your books. Like, we go to big conferences. We go to the TLA conference, the Texas Library Association conference. We give away thousands of books, putting in the hands of the librarians. If you meet someone and they're a potential new customer and you've got 6 books, give them the first one. There's a time to give your book away. But for me personally, now a lot of authors do that 0-0 and they're very successful with it, and that's great. But for me personally, I just feel a little bit icky because I'm like, I worked so hard on that. It took me a year to write that book, and I have $6,000 in editing and design, and all of a sudden, all of this money, and I'm going, and I'm just going to give it away forever. No, but
I
that's
don't
me.
I don't put any of my books on audio. If my clients wanna
Yeah,
put their books on audio, they can produce it somewhere else. My
yeah,
thought is we're in a world today that people have lost the ability to read. If you
right.
really want my book, learn to read. I want you to read it. I want you to pick up the book. I want you to, I know you can't do it with Kindle, but at least you're gonna read it on Kindle. Don't
Yeah,
have someone, read it to you. Um,
yeah.
and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just, an old curmudgeon that doesn't feel that the audio is useful. And maybe, there are places where, okay, you're driving in your car, you want to listen to my book, but it ain't happening. Why don't you stop and pick up the book and read it on the beach or something?
No, I agree.
I
Because
prefer
reading
someone to
anymore
read it.
today in today's world is a commitment, right? You have to make the time to sit down and read because people are so busy. But when you sit down and you read, it's so relaxing and you're getting all this information or you're engrossed in a story. I mean, it's just a wonderful experience. I think people are missing out by
Mhm.
not sitting down and just reading.
Yeah.
I love to read. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah,
I don't read anything that I write in regards to that genre. I read a lot of biographies and things like that. I just really find that very interesting.
I've already read everything on the internet, so that's out. I have to learn to read zero boxes again. That's how I
Well,
started.
speaking of the audiobooks, we do not do audiobooks because of the expense. We don't get our money back.
No,
So
no.
it costs thousands of dollars to produce a good audiobook. And once again, because the market is so saturated, you're not getting your money back. We have authors that have gone through ACX and Audible and produce their books and in audio and have great narrators and all of those things. And I've asked them point blank, was that worth it to you? Did you get your money back? And they right off the top or right off the bat go, no, it wasn't. We haven't seen a time. We're not getting our money back. So I just think there's a certain level when you have to be realistic. If you're not selling thousands of units a month, then why would you need an audiobook? If all of a sudden your book is flying off the shelf and you're making money, then you have money to invest back into that product, then you produce an audiobook. But I think a lot of it is just really common sense.
Yeah, yeah, and there are some people out there that'll say, "Well, it adds to the SEO of your name." Okay, well, it's very expensive for one, and
Yeah.
is it going to be worth it? And I want people to understand that a book in itself is a journey, and it's an
Yes.
expense. Yes,
Right.
it's going to give you some authority in what you've done, but it also comes with a cost. So,
Yeah.
whether you're spending 10,000, 20,000, whatever, and I know publishing houses that will charge you an arm and a leg and
Yeah.
your next born, um, but size them out, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I've been doing this a long time. A man has been doing this a long time. Each one of us is a little different. I'm very sarcastic, and so maybe my personality is not going to match. A man is going to be a little bit more patient with you, you know? Um,
I try. I try.
But, it's do your due diligence. Yeah.
Exactly. Talk to as many publishers as you possibly can before you make a decision on who you go with.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that goes with us, I want them to have checked out everybody. I want them to ask all the questions so that when I tell them about what we're doing, they have something to compare it to.
Mhm.
So if someone's saying, "Well, I'm going to guarantee you sales," I'm going to say, "I'm not going to guarantee you sales. I think it's irresponsible to guarantee you sales because I can't predict whether your book is going to sell. It's a good book. I love the work. The quality is amazing. It's a popular genre, but does that mean you can, force a consumer to purchase it? No.
Mhm.
So anyone that says, yeah, I can get your money back, I can, make sure you have sales or you're going to be a number one, really, oh, I would run. I would run. But also, what are the contract terms? What are you getting for your dollars? I mean, I want them to have talked to so many people so that by the time they talk to me and they compare what we do, they can see apples and oranges.
Right. So how do people find you? Where do they go?
Well, you can go to our website. It's a long name. 12 years ago, who knew, right? Progressive Rising Phoenix.com. And we have a contact form on there. You can check out all of the titles that we've produced. You can reach out to us and discuss our program. I'll be happy to discuss what we do, what you're actually getting when you join us. Nothing's off the table. So if you have a question, I will answer it. I just believe that's the best way to do business. There's no hidden fees. There's no, oh, here's a surprise. I just want anyone that comes on board with us to understand what they're getting and to be comfortable with the decision that they've made.
Mhm.
And we're very selective. Like before we take any author on, that work is going to be sent out for two professional reviews at our cost. And we're going to take that feedback into consideration before we even discuss that person coming on because we are so small in the scheme of things. I mean, we've got 100, 200 titles, something like that. And we do different formats and we're with LSI, but we're still a small to mid-sized publishing company. So we have to be really, really careful that we're really representing solid work, really good writers, really, work that stands up, quality work, not just putting out a quality product, but quality work so that the authors that we have on board can come back with their next work and continually build on that platform, that wheel, so they have that visibility under the label that we have versus just we certainly don't do like dollars for contracts. That's not us. We're very careful about what we publish, quality over quantity for us. So we might put out, two books a year, we might put out four books a year, but we certainly just don't put out everything that comes across the table for us. It's just we're all writers, including myself, so we want us all to be in good company.
I started out with 1 book a year, and now we're
Yeah, I
this
mean,
year is just phenomenal, and I don't know, I can't say phenomenal, maybe it's delirious, but, I've done 7 books this year, and it's just driving me nuts, so, I try to limit it to 4 a year because otherwise I lose track of time, and then I don't focus on my other company, my marketing.
right, right. No, 4 years is a good number. We have a nice healthy pipeline right now, which is great. Summer is always slow for us, but then we tend to pick up in the fall and moving toward the holiday season. But I wished more than anything else in this world that the authors that we have on board would accumulate the sales and the visibility that they deserve.
Mhm.
But it's just a constant battle. And it's really disheartening when you have, really good work and then you have an author that doesn't want to do anything to help promote that work. And then they turn around and say, "Well, why isn't it selling?" Well, it's like you have to say, "Well, what are you doing to help us sell it? What are you doing?" And they're not. And that's really sad because we have some really great pieces on board. But life gets in the way and some people get busy and they go through their ups and downs. So I completely understand that. But there's a direct correlation between the success of a book and the author's input and work with that book versus not.
Right, yeah. Well,
So
there you go, folks. That is the state of publishing for 2024.
yes. Yeah, we don't
Probably
wanna scare you. If this is your dream, go for it. Just know what you're getting into, and just don't have, unrealistic expectations. If it ends up being a great bestseller, fantastic, but don't go into it thinking, "I'm gonna be a bestseller." Go into it thinking, "I'm gonna share my work with the world, and if people wanna purchase it, great, and if they don't, that's okay. I'm just gonna keep plugging along." And I think if you do that, you won't be disappointed and you'll enjoy that journey that we were talking about.
There you go, wise words, and that's what makes a man any hero, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Adios.